Fenerbahçe 1, Manchester United 1. I'm joined by Stephen Howson. Steve, is that a decent result at a tricky ground away from home, or more terrible performances and results in Europe under Erik ten Hag?
You can look at every single minute of every single game, and you can analyse each bit, and you can look at the positives and the negatives and the players that stepped up and the players that fell below the standard. But when you zoom out and you start looking at, like, what are we on, 1 in 7? Just like, you start looking at these sorts of things, it ain't good enough. Like, you can talk about how, from a tactical point of view, like, we rode our luck a little bit. We required some big saves and some last-ditch tackling from Bugatti in the first half. You can talk about how second half, a little bit like Brentford, we came out and we started to control the ball a lot better. Don't think we had quite the same threat that we had against Brentford in the second half, but we did seem to limit the opposition chances and seem to be a bit more comfortable in possession. Ultimately, though, results is the game. And tonight, the result wasn't good enough. And you can say, yeah, all right, back in the day, a point away at Fenerbahçe isn't the worst result in the world. But the context of the fact that we haven't won a game in Europe this season, or in fact for a year, starts to make it not quite be the well done, attaboy point that, people really want to start giving it.
What would you call this then? What would you say? Is this more evidence that maybe sort of Ten Hag isn't, doing it in Europe, or isn't doing it generally? Or is this just a symptom of the kind of malaise over the squad? Or if we zoom out, maybe not for 12 months, but just for this season, we're still in the kind of progressing places in the group, which is a bizarre thing to say because we're 21st, but somehow that's enough for us to go through as it stands? Or do you think it is just I don't know, I'm worried that we're seeing a manager that isn't going to turn it around, and we're just giving him enough time so that whoever comes in next hasn't got basically a full season to play with. Do you think that that's what's going on, or you're not trying to look at the manager week in, week out here, because it is a bit silly, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a very real chance he also played their hand in terms of the manager. They did what they did in the summer, which wasn't fully backing him, but it also wasn't getting rid of him. And then the opportunity, whether it was real or whether it was imagined by journalists because there was fuck all else to write about, the opportunity to bin him a couple of weeks ago, the international break, was there. And again, they chose not to. So I think it's a waste of mine and your breath and anybody else's sitting here talking about the manager's not good enough. The manager might not be good enough, but I can tell you this, hand on heart, that team isn't good enough. Now, you might argue it's good enough to beat Fenerbahçe. It's good enough not to be the 21st team in the second tier competition in Europe, right? That would be a perfectly acceptable thing to argue. You could argue it's better than 10th in the Premier League, and I think that would be not by a lot, but you're probably right. It probably is better than 10th it's certainly not top 3, but it's probably better than 10th, right? So we're not getting the tune that we could get out of it, but also this is not 1999 Manchester United. This is not 2008 Manchester United. This isn't even 2016 Manchester United. That forward line is not good. It's not better than maybe half a dozen forward lines in our league. Now, it might be better than Fenerbahçe's with fucking Dzeko, etc. But I think people would have a real shock. You can get Fergie in here, and this team ain't doing shit because it hasn't got goals.
So, sorry, go on. Sorry.
I'm waffling.
I mean, so just on that then. So when we came in and when Ten Hag came in, he finished third, and we didn't score loads of goals either, but we managed to finish third, and we won a trophy that season. The first time we'd finished top 4 and won a trophy the same season since Sir Alex left. Have we got worse? Has the squad got worse since then? And Whose fault is that? How can that have been allowed to happen?
Well, sometimes things just happen. Cristiano Ronaldo decided he wanted to sack it.
Yeah.
Mason Greenwood did Mason Greenwood things. You had the likes of Anthony Martial, who was still on the books, leave. Okay, didn't exactly play a lot, but he was here. I'm not sure whether we had Cavani when... I feel like we did. Did we?
I think he left at the end of the Rangnick season, Cavani.
Right, that sounds about
double
right.
check that. Yeah.
You had allegedly Jadon Sancho. You had more. You certainly had more. I mean, in Greenwood and Cristiano Ronaldo, you had, I would think, 40 goals. 40 goals added to this team would make a significant difference, nearly an extra goal per game. Now, yeah, obviously it doesn't just work like that, and there would be someone having to make way for those players to play in there. But like, without going full Moneyball on it, you got to get some fucking goals in the team.
Yeah,
you need to find a way. We have got one goal scorer in the squad, and his goal scoring is not consistent. Ruud van Nistelrooy, watch me just do 30 goals every season. He did it once, and he got close to it once before as well. Marcus Rashford. Outside of that, Xerxes doesn't do double figures. Højlund, you're asking for him to even get to 20 is to like, listen, can you just do some shit you've never done? And we'll see how it goes. Ahmad is still a rookie. Garnacho is still a rookie. And Anthony's fucking dog shit. So, like, you're asking so much out of this forward line. Between them lot, 40 goals is a serious amount of goals to try and make up. And that's probably what we need to be bringing in on top of what we already score. And they ain't got it in them. It doesn't matter if you bring fucking Muhammad Ali with fucking Matt Busby as his assistant. It ain't going to matter. We are not fucking scoring goals with this forward line. Whose fault is that? Everyone's. Sometimes players want to leave. Sometimes players want to throw Paddy out there. From the Glazers to Woodward to Judge to a little bit on Ineos this season even. There was a reason Ivan Toney was being linked with Manchester United, even though none of us had a fucking clue how or where he would fit in. It's a long-term project to fix, and maybe they didn't identify the right opportunities or players, or they still needed players to go. Like, look at the way they've been cost-cutting, not just with the likes of Sir Alex and some of the big players that have left, but the fact that they've got rid of fucking like museum staff. There's a massive cost-cutting thing going on. It might get worse before it gets better.
Is this the sort of the harsh reality that this is what a rebuild is? That you do have spells where you actually get worse rather than just not getting better?
Success isn't linear and it's not guaranteed. So maybe you have to take a step back sometimes. There's a lot of children that aren't going to want to hear that. And I'm not saying that's even what's happening. I'm just saying it might be what's happening. Yeah. People will go, well, we've been shit for 11 years. Yeah. No, and because it's been done wrong for 11 years. How many times did we hear of opportunities under the previous regime, which has got to take 99% of the blame? The Woodward and Judge fuckwit era that we've just come through. And Arnold, he don't get away with this. Like, that fucking crowd needs to take most of the blame for the shit show that we find ourselves in. And for anyone that's going to have a kick-off with Ineos, you may have some legitimate reasons to kick off with them. You might. I don't know if it's going to do any good, though, because I think you have to wait. The problem with the executives, it's not like a shiny new centre forward who just scores 25 goals that season. Executives and some of the stuff that they're going to be putting in place, whether it's like nutritionists and stuff like that, you don't get to see the result of a nutritionist on a Saturday. You start to see it in like incremental 1% improvements in people not being as injured for long and shit like that over fucking 2 years. It's about fine-tuning things when it gets to that kind of level. But there's also massive easy wins that, we could do with taking. They're probably just expensive easy wins, and they probably don't want to get it wrong and do it twice. because we've been in that situation a lot. You know, there's a big fucking £80 million mistake that this current regime is carrying. That was on them fuckwits that have gone. We think he's worth 30 mil, so let's pay 80 for him.
And he got
to be honest,
off tonight.
30 mil would have been mental, wouldn't it? Even if we'd have bought him for 30 mil, we'd have been like, Jesus Christ, we got mugged.
Yeah, assuming you're talking about Anthony. Just focusing, sort of narrowing back in a little bit, obviously, we're talking about the project there. Just on the European sort of group stage as it is, do you think, they felt like the last 10 minutes to me were so lacking urgency and intensity? I can only assume that whether the coaches did or not, the players were quite happy with the draw, or didn't seem desperate for a win at least. Do you think they're just thinking, finish top 24, and we can go from there? Or do you think there was a bit more of a, running out of ideas going on? How do you explain that sort of lack of intensity last 10 minutes?
It's almost a symptom of this season, mate. Look how many draws we've had.
All draws.
And you think those draws are so close to wins, but also so close to losses. I don't know the answer to this. It's for anyone being like, you got to fuck the manager off. Yeah, you might. You're right. You might, but you might not, because you might fuck him off, and it might get even worse.
It can always get worse. What are we, like 12th out of 92 teams or whatever? Like, it could get so much. There's so much space for this to get worse. Like, you can't guarantee it's going to get better. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it, because we're not going to, go down to League Two anytime soon. I wouldn't have thought, but maybe, like you said, there is a reality to this squad of we haven't got guaranteed goals in there. You look at the great sort of forward lines of all time, the 100-goal plus forward lines. They've all got good players in. None of them did it with bad players having remarkable seasons. It just hasn't happened. You need top players who do things year in, year out. So maybe
how many goals is Mo Salah going to score this year?
I mean, it's going to be 30 in all comps in it at minimum.
Right.
Because he does it every year.
Right there, right? And if he doesn't, it's probably because one of his legs has fell off. Yeah. So, and he still probably get 15, right? But how many is Haaland going to score? Again,
minimum 30. Probably 40.
Son's playing in a shit team. How many is he going to score?
Again, you're thinking 20 minimum, aren't you? If nothing, he'll get 20.
Who in this Manchester United team can you tell me now, hand on heart, we'll have a bet, and the loser shaves his beard off, he's going to score 20 goals for Manchester United this season? Who are you willing to put a beard on?
I'm not willing to put a beard on anyone. If I had to say a player, I would say Rashford. But again, I'm not willing to bet on it. There's no one where you would say he's your 20-goal a season player, and then we'll have these lot fill in the rest of the gaps as well. We haven't got one, and that is an issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and Joe, what? It sounds very simplistic, but sometimes it can be that simplistic, because I think the midfield is by and large functional. By and large, it's not dreadful. It's not massively lagging under the rest of like the league. And I quite like the defence, and I think we've got a good keeper too. I don't know why he gets some of the press that he gets. Every keeper makes a clanger. I remember Peter Schmeichel making some fucking howlers. Not so much Van der Sar, but there's always a mistake in a keeper, particularly one that's going to patrol outside of his box and take as many risks with the ball as Onana does. There's going to be times where he gets absolutely cooked, but he's also a bloody good keeper and a good shot stopper. It's the attack. I just look at the attack and I go, I'm hoping you all have your best season, and it's probably still not enough. That is the reality of where we are. Like, we would need Mo Salah's worst season, and it's still be the best for 3/4 or more of our forward line.
That is true. Right, Steve. It's not been particularly uplifting, but like I said, it might get worse before it gets better. Thank you for joining us from your hotel room there. I mean, I didn't even mention that you're just in a completely different venue than usual, but I think people just expect that with you these days. You could be anywhere on the planet doing these videos. So thank you for joining us. Thank you at home for joining us as well. Fenerbahçe won, Manchester United won, 21st in the group stages. We'll see you in a bit.